Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are, actually. And welcome. My name is Mohammed Al Maskati, and I am the Helpline Director at Access Now. I will be moderating today's session as a part of Digital Security Webinars series. At Access Now, we work to defend and extend human rights in digital age. One of our key programs is the Digital Security Helpline, which provide free, rapid response digital security supports to activists, journalists, civil society, organizations who are facing digital security threats around the world. This webinar is a part of series webinars that will take place every 2 months, bringing together experts from Access Now, broader community, and private sectors to share knowledge, experience, and challenges that digital security facing. Before we beginning, I would like to take a moment to send my greeting and appreciation to the credible team at Digital Security Helpline. And there was all the challenges they face. They continue working to support our community 24/7 and also helping at-risk communities. Before we start, I just have a quick housekeeping notes. Please feel free to submit your question through the chat or the Q&A at the session. We will try our best to address as many as we can. We only have 1 hour, but we will try to address all these questions. I know that this is a very interesting topic that a lot of people would like to hear about. So I will try my best to moderate and bring all these questions to our panelists. With that, I want to thank all of you joining us today. And I'm pleased to welcome our speakers and looking forward to great conversations. So we have today with us amazing people, amazing experts. We have Marilu from the Digital Security Helpline at Access Now. We have Rebecca from Citizen Lab. We have Mikola from Resident and Justin from Lookout. Welcome to this webinars, and I'm happy to be the moderator for the first session. Let me start with you, Rebecca. You are part of the Citizen Lab and has definitely supporting many victims of digital repression. And one of these support is regarding spear phishing. And I want to ask you, what is the role of spear phishing as a part of attackers' toolkit?
So the primary goal of attackers of using spear phishing is really to get access to information. So spear phishing can either be to get access to an account itself, like a web-based account to get credentials, or to deliver some sort of malware that's going to give wider access to a system, to install something onto a digital device and allow for full access to communications and information stored on the device itself. But the ultimate goal of doing that is just to be able to get access to that sensitive information that individual has about their activities and the communities that they're a part of. With authoritarian states, that information is often used to try and control those individuals. With states like Russia and China, we see that done to collect information about activities that are being planned, about advocacy and policy work that is being planned, especially related to things like international cooperation, because then they can use that information to try and intervene and pull some of those policy levers themselves. On both sides, we also see that access being used to facilitate follow-on phishing attacks as well, because they can either send additional emails impersonating an individual that they maybe were able to successfully attack, or they can scrape the contents of their entire email inbox and use some of the AI tools that are available to them to be able to really convincingly impersonate someone and be able to just further spread their attacks. In China, in particular, what we've seen is phishing being used as part of their campaign of digital transnational repression. And so, what we see there are um, a real desire to get as much information as possible in order to conduct what we call preemptive repression. So, if they can find out, are there protests being planned? Are there activities people are talking about? Are there um, community engagement, um, like discussions that are happening, and can they find out about those and intervene and show up to counter protests or to arrest individuals for even discussing things like how to stop, some of the things that are happening. And so that preemptive repression is a goal that we're seeing that they have discovered they can achieve by phishing and by getting access to this type of information.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. Just to follow up question, a lot of people say that spear phishing is cheaper than using other surveillance tools. What do you think about that?
Oh, that is a tough question. I mean, it's definitely cheaper than some surveillance tools. Some surveillance tools are pretty pricey out there. I think it's lower cost on the attackers because there are a lot of readily available phishing kits out there that don't require a lot of expertise to use. And if they get caught using them, there's often not a lot of repercussions. Like the worst case is that, well, there's the worst case is that groups like us here on the webinar find out about them and write something about them, and then they have to start over from scratch. But more often than not, what happens is that an individual just doesn't fall for it and they don't click a link or they don't enter their passwords. And then the attackers just try again. And so I think there's lower risk and there's lower cost associated with it. And so it can seem like a more appealing method to try than some of the other surveillance methods that are riskier and might come with more severe consequences for being detected.
Thank you so much. Uh, I just want to turn to you, Marilu. Marilu, you're working in analyst team in the helpline, and you definitely saw a lot of cases the last past 2 years, phishing attacks and other type of attacks. Can you share with us some of what you saw, what kind of cases you saw, and what kind of tactics that other communities, region should be aware of?
Yeah, like phishing have became a very common case. We work in the helpline and we have open investigations in different regions, like in Eastern Europe and Central Asia, and in the Middle East and North Africa. We've seen highly personalized social engineering wherein data related to accounts of our beneficiaries have been utilized to craft malicious web pages to collect two-factor authentication codes that can bypass access to accounts and trusted devices, which are totally convincing as it combined with persistence through multiple resources available to attackers. So taking, for example, in one case, attackers impersonates as the official support service of the platform and mention that the beneficiary needs to verify their account, else it will not be protected. So when they replied to the message and the attacker performed login attempts that triggers alert on the account, the beneficiary have interacted with the attacker basically, and so on as the history goes. And yeah, the phishing cases have varied not only in tactics but in tools. and some included spyware. We are seeing in other cases that attackers would lure users to install fake applications that are actually malware. The scope of the compromise in this attack, is on the device level. And once the victim downloads the malicious application, it would collect and exfiltrate data like SMS messages, contacts, recent modified files, images, audio, and so on.
That's very impressive, Marilu. It's a very risky if someone compromise emails where our emails is connected to all the platforms. So compromise one platform, it can compromise all our digital life, and that's actually lead me to ask what is the private sector is doing. Well, I understand what is the civil society Justin is doing, but I'm going to see as a Lookout is a leading company in the cybersecurity, and I think I know that as a Lookout is not only focusing on civil society, but you're focusing on general users. But I want to talk more about what you see that targeting civil society. I know you now for really long time, Justin, and I know that you did a lot on spear phishing attacks that happened to our community.
Yeah, happy to talk about it. One of the big things that I think is a difference between enterprise targeting, like when you're targeting an organization or a company, or civil society targeting, is that with enterprise targeting, you see a lot of phishing, like voice phishing, a lot of attempts that are, I guess, more on the exploit level of the company, but also looking at getting credentials from the users in order to breach those corporate accounts. For civil society, I'd say, especially on mobile platforms, it's almost more of a risk than for enterprises in many cases, because these devices are things that we take around with us everywhere that we go. And that includes for civil society and the needs to communicate, and a lot of sensitive communications going on mobile platforms. For that reason, we see a ton of targeting of civil society. For example, at Lookout, we track, I'd say, around 40, 50 different malware families that we look targeting that are tied to China, for example, to Chinese APTs. Out of those, roughly half of them target the Uyghur community, target Tibetans, Taiwanese, and that's nearly 20 different custom malware families, many of those delivered through spear phishing. So the mobile platform in this case, which is what we typically focus on in my research, is a prime target for spear phishing and for, as was mentioned, the side loading of applications, or even one-click attacks if we get to a more sophisticated level, or zero-click attacks, which of course does not involve spear phishing, but is still something to be aware of. One of the things that I'd say happens with civil society a lot is we see prolonged social engineering attempts that then lead to a spear phishing attack. So what that means is, in many times, the attacker will be building a relationship with the victim. It could be hours, it could be days, even weeks before they start to deliver malicious links. They might deliver something that's legitimate before that. So they work to build trust with not only the individuals that they're targeting, but with the communities that they're targeting. Um, the these actors take advantage of the fact that a lot of civil society communities or marginalized communities need these safe spaces to communicate, or need specific applications, for example, like let's say VPN applications, or VPN collection, or end-to-end encrypted applications. Or that they have language barriers, for example, going back to the Uyghurs. Some applications or some resources on the internet aren't readily available in the languages that they need. So the threat actors will actually take advantage of this fact, and they'll infiltrate into communities, like in Telegram, really any kind of social media platform. And they'll use that as a basis to establish a backstop and kind of a reputation, if you think of safety, and then start targeting individuals from there. So I think one of the important things to note in civil society is that these groups can be infiltrated, and someone that you may trust, um, but might not know for a very long time, could be an attacker. And we've often seen that being the case where they actually will sometimes build their own communities and invite people to them. This happens a lot in Telegram. It happens even on LinkedIn. You'll see people connecting to fake accounts that are delivering spear phishing attacks. Um, all of this backstop is in some cases very thorough. You might have, in some cases, just a phishing link that arrives to your device randomly, and maybe that's a kind of spray and pray attack that's gone to tons of people. But in other cases, we have what are called sock puppet accounts, so like fake accounts that the actors set up on social media platforms with a history, with a network. They might have websites that they've created to talk about companies that they've invented. In many cases, it's getting more difficult to kind of dig into these things, and as your average user on the internet, tell whether something's bad or not. So we do see that growing, especially in a lot of the nation state threat actors that we've observed targeting civil society.
That's very impressive. I just want to have a follow-up question, Justin, is do you see mixed attacks between spear phishing and spyware? So if one failed, the other one can succeed. Do you see these kind of things? Or you, because a lot of people say if you if it's spear phishing and you clicked on it, but you didn't put the password, it's fine. But do you see there is a mix between two sometimes in one attack?
Yeah, absolutely. There's, of course, that, if you click on something, that doesn't necessarily mean that if you haven't filled anything out, that you haven't been hacked. I think that's an important thing to point out. There are many methods, depending on the device that you're on, depending on the tool set of the attacker that's targeting you, that would enable you to simply have your device hacked from clicking on a link, not necessarily from filling out any information. And I think there's an important distinction here, right? There's what's called credential phishing, which is that you go to a website, it gives you a form based on probably whatever services it's pretending to be. Let's say Meta, for example, you want to log into Facebook. Um, you might get a form there that you need to log in. That would be credential phishing. They're trying to steal your password and username and then replay it, or just trying to steal your cookies. And then there's malicious content delivery, which is that some of these links go directly to sideloaded applications. They could go to trusting an iOS profile for a company that purports to be your company, but in fact delivers spyware. On an iOS device, it could be targeting your iCloud account, for example. That's a great way to target the data on your iPhone without actually hacking your phone, is by getting the data that's in your iCloud account. Um, uh, there's also, for example, specific targeting of like maybe you don't click a link, but you scan a QR code. Of course, QR code phishing is growing rapidly, and we see that especially with account syncing. Some of the end-to-end encrypted applications like Signal, WhatsApp, these Telegram, for example, these allow you to sync your web-based account, so the one you use in your like laptop browser, with the one that you use on your mobile device. And attackers have ways to essentially sync your end-to-end encrypted account to their device, or whether that's a laptop or a mobile device, so that they can then read everything that's going into your chats. So plenty of different attack vectors that they're able to use there. It's not just filling out a form, and I think that is important to recognize. Yeah.
Thank
Can
you
I
so
also
much. Yeah, go ahead, Pravika.
I was just going to add, we've also recently seen campaigns where they combine them. It's like a one-two punch. We've seen one recently where the attackers are like requesting interviews, and they say, "Oh, we'll send you the interview questions ahead of time. Similarly to what you did for this webinar, actually. But it will be a cloud-based link where they say, oh, here's to download the PDF. And so they try and get you to enter your credentials because surely you need to authenticate to this cloud-based service. So now you've given them your credentials, possibly your two-factor token, and then the PDF with the questions that you download also has malware in it as well. And so they're kind of combining tactics. So it's not always that they do just one or the other. Oftentimes the attacks will kind of layer multiple different ways just to be as effective as they can.
Yeah, I'm sorry if we did scared you with the links, but we tried our best. And also, I just want to mention regarding QR code. We saw this a lot now in restaurants and places, and people really they didn't take any careful steps. They always scan that in restaurants, and I think your advice is very important, especially that QR code in restaurant can be easy to change, even in the tables or that is tagged in the tissue or tagged in the chair or something like this. This is a very important, and that's actually leads me to go to Mikola. I know that you, a resident, worked a lot in a specific region, Eastern Europe, and I know that you did a lot of reports about spear phishings in that region, and that region is well known of spear phishing, to be honest. Like either the governments or criminals or unknown people using spear phishing. So I want to ask what the trends you see that is affecting the civil society in 2026?
Yeah, so first of all, phishing is attack. Let me like quote myself from an article. An attack number one, number two, and number three in the region. So it's like really, really like a leading attack in the region. And the trends are the new platforms. Like we've seen a massive Signal phishing wave and Telegram phishing. And if there is a platform we haven't seen phishing yet, I believe we will in 2026 or 27, but we'll definitely see phishing there as well. Uh, then, yeah, multi-stage phishing, when really a week-long professional conversation, extremely relevant, and only after a malicious link shared, uh, such attacks are expensive, conducted by professionals against like the most high-profile targets, and they are actually happening. I believe this is something we will have more in 2026, but again, it will never be massive. It's for high-profile targets only. Uh, then, yeah, new ways to trick a user, to scan a QR code, and from the perspective of user experience, like we used to log in to a service using, for example, our Facebook account or Google account, and when they say, hey, please verify yourself or log in using a Telegram account, so yeah, why not? Please scan a QR code, verify you are you, and you want to vote, for example, in a contest. Uh, so yeah, people are doing that. So new ways, not only QR codes, the click fix, like run a terminal and copy paste a command there. You don't understand what the hell is that, but that will do something to your computer again. It's really tricky. I think the click fix is something we will have more. Again, it's like I'm going to a website and a usual normal CAPTCHA I'm used to once. I don't know, select bridges or something, and this time it said, hey, please confirm, like verify you are a human being. Please click here and on your keyboard, like press Win plus R and paste something and press enter. Well, uh, it works again. It's something new, and I believe there will be some new ways in 2026. Or Microsoft device authenticator codes was something I was not even aware was there. And again, there is such a way to again trick a user to generate some code and provide this code to attacker, I don't know, to authenticate a new device to your account. Like extremely tricky. And the old classics, like the old classic will absolutely be there. It's working really great. Attached malicious documents, PDFs, office documents, archives, etc. Like your tax office is writing you, or a court, or a state institution, etc., etc. Really works good. As well as the gold classic, like your account has been locked, someone has used your password to log into your account. We block the attempt, but you'd better change your password, etc., etc. So these old classic will be there not only for 2026, but say, forever. So these are the main trends I see in Eastern Europe.
Thank you so much, Nicole. I have a follow-up question, if you allow me. Do you think there is less awareness in Eastern Europe? I mean, your work is very important, and I think you do a lot of awareness in the region, but do you think we need to do more on that sense?
Yes, but I would say not a general awareness for like everyone, for the whole population, but organizational level awareness as a part of organizational risk management process organized by the management of the organization. I would say this kind of awareness would work best.
Thank you so much. I think it's one of our goal in this kind of digital security webinars is also to raise awareness about what's happening. And I think it's a very important that you attend this webinars and coming webinars. I think it's a very important, and this is our goal in the helpline, is to raise awareness. I just want to remind everyone here that you still can ask questions. If you have questions, there is a Q&A bottom down, and you can click and ask your questions. I want to back to you, Rebecca. When first time I know you, I met you as someone in Apple, and then I found out you also part of training institution. Now you moved and shift to civil society. So you have the three important elements: is that civil society, private companies experience, and training institutions. What you saw here as a challenge on prevent this kind of attack against activists and journalists, and what you see each sector role in this part of work?
And there's a lot of challenges. It's kind of the attackers are always changing. There's always small things they can do. But like Mikola just says, they don't always have to change, because sometimes human nature just gets the better of us. And if you get an email saying that you have unpaid court fines and you're going to go to jail if you don't click on a link, like you're going to click on the link. And so things like that become very, very difficult for any user, whether you have training or not, to know always 100% of the time how to respond the correct and safest way. So I really do think that the technology companies and the platforms have a big role to play there. One of the things that I have been grateful to see is the efforts that have been made to make it easier to report to those platforms that there is something suspicious, like easier to report phishing, whether it's email based or on mobile platforms. I know in particular with Apple, it used to be as soon as you interacted with a message that ability to report junk or report spam went away. That is no longer there. You can still report it now, which is great. And what that does is it enables those platforms to be better able to tune their own detections and their own sensors to hopefully stop these things from reaching users to begin with. And then on top of that, I think that threat notifications are really important because not only do you maybe prevent something from reaching someone to begin with and take away that ability or that chance that they might accidentally um, make make a choice that's going to put them at risk. But now you're also giving them more information that they're being targeted. And when I would do training, what we would say is that you can often learn just as much from a failed attempt as from a successful attempt, because now you know that someone is interested in you and maybe interested in your community, and now you can take additional steps. So if you ever do get a threat notification, there's a lot you can learn from that, and you should take it very seriously. On a community level, I do think that it's important that we continue to raise awareness, have webinars like this and attend. And if you're attending, share what you found interesting or share the recording with others in your community. And then I think just coordinated action when we find something, when there's a new activity or a new campaign, or maybe it's something that's just going around again that is convincing or clever or that you almost fell for, or maybe you did fall for, letting people know and just raising that awareness, I think will just help keep everyone safe.
That's amazing advice, Rebecca. So you see that the important to report something is a very important. So people, I mean, these platform can learn from it.
They can. I won't. Not everyone's not perfect. I think there's always more that can be done to learn and to protect people who are using their technologies. But if you don't report it, it makes it even harder for them to be able to do that. So I do think reporting is very, very important.
And I also, you said something very also interesting is that share if you get attacked. And a lot of people actually shame to say that my account is hijacked or compromised. So what you say on that?
It can be really scary, especially if you are starting to go through, you think, oh, I actually did enter my credentials, and you start to run through like who might I have exposed or who could be at risk. That's really, really, I think it's a scary situation to be in. And I think it requires a lot of thought with how you approach that. And hopefully you have someone you can reach out to get guidance on first of all, how do you make sure that your account is safe and secure? But then I do think it is important to share the specifics around this is why it was convincing and this is why I believed it. And because I think by staying silent and by being, afraid that maybe someone will, especially if it's you think someone will think less of you, that's not going to help anyone be more secure themselves. It's the attackers are very convincing. And at some point, I think anyone could fall for some of these attacks that I've seen. And so being able to be upfront about that is really only going to help the community to stay safe as a whole.
Yeah, that's very important. I mean, it's a culture things, and I think we need to change the cultures that no one bulletproof from these kind of attacks, and you need to be ready and report it because then it will help more people to be safe. And thanks, Rebecca. This is a very important things to mention. I want to jump to Justin. Justin, you don't do only spear phishing, and if we just zoom out of a little bit from phishing to something bigger, like other form of surveillance. Like, can you tell us what you see in the role of companies like Lookout to contribute to fight against surveillance in general? What you see as a Lookout rule or any tech industry?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, Rebecca's advice about victims also applies to companies. And especially the companies that are performing research as part of like a cybersecurity role. A lot of companies might only serve organizations or enterprises, but they're likely to still run across campaigns and threats that are applicable to civil society, or they might even see evidence of targeting of civil society or individuals that they don't normally report on. I think one of the most important things, like as a first step for a company, in order to help counter these threats that are targeting people who aren't parts of huge organizations in many cases and don't have as much protection, is to get the information out there. Like the first thing is to blog about it, share intelligence with NGOs, try to establish those relationships. They're difficult because they're based on trust for good reasons. But it's important that I think that this research makes it out so that others can learn from it and they can learn what the attacks are as a number one thing. I see a lot of companies who, like, for example, like maybe they're just talking about banking Trojans, which great, but there is a lot of espionage that's very easy to find, frankly, and you see a lot of victims that people don't report on. We find a lot of things, even though we protect enterprises at this point in our company. Most of our blogs are actually talking about things that are tied to nation states that target civil society, because we consider it an important thing. We're already putting protections over here, but let's talk about this and make sure that others know about it. The other thing I'd say is, besides doing this research and investing in this research to understand how espionage works and how civil society is being targeted, is to provide technology, provide help, provide training if you have the resources to do so. I think it's important to establish relationships with people who are actually being attacked by, in some cases, some of the most technologically advanced spyware that exists in current day. So these people, organizations need the training. Sometimes this is difficult to get. They need the access to the reporting, or at least some of the distilled intelligence that you can provide them. NGO licenses or free licenses to tooling. I think that all of these things can help to close the gap a little bit, and also establish that bilateral communication so that, if someone does get hit, you and your organization, now speaking from the perspective of a private organization, have resources that you can spare, hopefully, to assist in those investigations, because they benefit both parties at the end of the day. For me, that's one of the main roles. And then also, finally, when you report on these things, like I think it's important to focus on not just the cybersecurity preventions that we can put in on like a tooling level or a device level, et cetera, but also to provide good guidance to users to how to avoid attacks, because not all of them are avoidable, frankly, unfortunately. Um, and also to put pressure out there in a way on the companies that are conducting these attacks, in some cases. And this is kind of more specifically towards hack for hire organizations, commercial surveillance vendors, stalkerware vendors as well, or spouseware. All of these are used at various scales to target innocent people. So I think it's important to kind of the name and shame approach. Frankly, it works, and it also drives governments to see that this is an important issue, and then to implement policy, which is really one of the things that's going to enable a change in this, I guess, in the world of surveillance.
Thank you so much, Justin. I just want to ask you questions. You say that you publish all this in blogs. One of the criticism that is toward even helpline or any organizations, any tech people, is that we cannot read your reports. We are not tech savvy. We don't understand what you say. Can you just summarize? Can you tell us what we need to do, how we can protect ourselves? So this is one of the criticism that always go to not only for private sector, but everyone actually. And what we or the private sector always say, okay, download our app, we will protect you. So what you say about that?
You know, in private companies, there's you have a lot of times I work with a ton of engineers. Obviously, we're all engineers, and sometimes you have to translate an engineer to a layman speak or to victim speak and ensure that you're getting the right intelligence across. Intelligence sharing has to do with understanding your audience at the end of the day and understanding what level they can meet you at, and then what intelligence is going to be most useful to them, right? In order for them to protect themselves. So one, that definitely, like, there needs to be intelligence delivered, I think, in blogs, if I were to give my advice on it, that meets the different categories of potential victims. So if you're writing a blog on, let's say, the last 0 day that we found, and we want to talk about people protecting themselves, then we need to address one, the technical audience, but also the non-technical audience who is just interested in determining how to protect their devices and avoid these attacks. So understanding your audience, of course, is key, and being able to translate those technical, very technical, like deep dive talks into something that's transferable to an actual action that a user can take to protect themselves. Yeah, absolutely important. I'd also say, especially like you mentioned, the download our app, download our tool. Like for me personally, I don't mind which one you download as long as you get something to protect yourselves. That's kind of and I think that things need to be kind of brought to that level, right? Like what are the best practices, regardless of tooling, that you can put into place to protect yourself? Um, and kind of a realization, I guess, on the part of the audience that a lot of blogs that companies are putting out, there are many stakeholders who are determining what goes in that blog. So I can put all of my technical data in there. I can put everything in there, and then later marketing and PR are going to come by and they're going to be like, add in the part about downloading our app. That's a little bit beyond the scope of what I can control. But I will say that there definitely needs to be effort to ensure that people can take steps that don't necessarily need to be downloading some kind of additional software on their device, but at least have some steps that they can take to protect themselves in the case that they're targeted, and also in some cases in the case that they've already been compromised, because there are additional steps that they can take after compromisation as well. Or I would say, even not considering that, if you fear that you may be compromised, there are things that you can do on device to still hide your communications, to kind of avoid that data is collected. Um, there are other solutions to these problems that I think need to be made public so that people can actually read them and understand them and put them in place.
Yeah, thank you. It was not only criticized you, it's criticized to everyone who is
Don't
involved in
worry.
everyone in digital security, to be honest. We hear this regularly, that people don't understand what we're saying. We use a language that is like encrypted language that non-tech savvy is really hard to understand. And I think this is a message to every digital security trainers. Please use a language that help to deliver the message clear and direct to non-tech savvy, and that's important for our awareness, and that's lead to Michaela. I want to ask you, I mean, there is a war conflict now is going everywhere in the regions, in Eastern Europe definitely, and that's definitely will lead to increase digital attack. Do you think the region, the Eastern Europe, is have ability to deflect them, to stop them, to fight them? And
Yes.
if you have like examples, like positive examples, I know that it's a very hard. It's a few organization working, including residents, but how we can, what we can do there?
Yes, I believe we can. Uh, I believe we evolved, both of us, the civil society organizations and independent media, as well as digital security service providers. So the organizations, the beneficiaries, um, became more and more uh, like using corporate systems, uh, more than ever. Like 5 years ago, a corporate laptop in an NGO or independent media was kind of a rare thing. Now it's kind of more and more okay. Corporate emails, corporate centralized antiviruses, sometimes device management, etc. But the main thing behind all this, the organizational capacity. So the civil society and independent media organizations uh, become more and more capable of taking and implementing management decisions, including security-related decisions. And this evolving is not like equally distributed because let's say organizations affiliated with countries who has been, you know, attacking them for long years are more prepared. Uh, and organizations from, for example, Georgia, I would say are less prepared because the pace of uh, negative changes is so high and they simply didn't have time to adopt. Mm, so it's not equal, but in general, we are more and more capable. And from the other side, the security service providers, like more than ever, we can better detect, we can investigate, we have access to like world-class tools and threat labs. Like we actively share threat intel and indicators. We have access to expensive tools. We have, I don't know, YubiKeys to distribute, etc., etc. So I would say, yes, we are more capable. We are more capable, absolutely, at least in Eastern Europe region.
Thank you so much, Mikhail. I'm really happy to hear that. That's a really good news to hear. Before, I mean, I will keep you to the end, Marilu. I know that you have amazing recommendations. I want to take some questions from the audience. One of the question is that how often is URL auto loading leverage in spear phishing? It's for all of you. Anyone would like to answer? Auto loading, URL auto loading. Yeah, Rafika.
I'll let other folks chime in specifically around the auto loading, like maybe in the body of an emails. I've not personally seen that, but again, I only see a small portion of cases. What I've seen most recently are use of things like, as far as like automatic responses, are like tracking pixels in remote content. So if you have like load remote content enabled in an email, and there's like a tracking pixel, like marketers use them as well, but adversaries use them also. And that can send back information about, you know, your IP address, your geolocation, what email client you're using, what operating system, things like that you're using. It can send that back automatically to the adversary's infrastructure. So I have seen that pretty frequently. But if anyone has information about actual like auto loading of URLs, I haven't seen those as much frequently.
I also haven't seen them much. I mean, I've seen automatic connection to URLs in the case of certain exploit chains, right? But that's I'd say that's a different. It's parallel, but not necessarily used in spear phishing cases. I don't think that. Although in some cases also for exploit chains, I would say it's good to turn off any kind of auto resolution or download of, for example, images in WhatsApp. Uh, Anything, I wouldn't do any kind of, if you have an option to turn it off on any kind of the devices or applications you're using, I would definitely not recommend turning on like auto downloading images, voice notes, videos, uh, or auto resolution of URLs.
Yeah, I will
Thank
also
you.
add that that's something that if you are an iPhone user and you enable lockdown mode, that's one of the things, like even the URL previews is something that gets disabled in lockdown mode, which indicates that there is clearly attack vectors there that are being leveraged. And so if it's something you're concerned about, or if you are consider yourself maybe high risk, lockdown mode is a good option if you're an iPhone user, and we'll kind of just cut out that as an attack surface option entirely.
Amazing advice. Thanks, Rebecca. And there is another questions, and I think this is something definitely you saw. AI used in attack. Do you think AI helped the attackers to increase the ability to attack beneficiaries, like building the attack through the AI? Now it's easy to do that. Did you see this happening recently, especially that there is a lot of agent now can help you to build a spear phishing attack?
Yeah, I can talk a little bit about what we've seen. It's definitely changing the playing field, that's for sure. I think that a couple of the biggest things that enables an attacker to do is one, bypass any kind of language restrictions. So you sound more native. You might sound like a native LLM or AI, but at least you sound native, which does help, of course, with any kind of social engineering or spear phishing attack. I'd also say that it allows scale, so that includes copying resources from other like legitimate emails, for example, if we're talking about email phishing. It's easier now to impersonate any kind of major brand, any kind of tone with an email. I think Rebecca mentioned earlier, like that you can actually access an inbox and then learn the tone of a user and the words that they would use, and essentially impersonate that user in follow-on attacks. And AI is something that's enabling this. So it is changing the game in regards to phishing largely, I would say, on the social engineering front and the lure front. If we were to talk about writing code and all the other use cases, I think that's a little bit separate issue. But for these cases, yeah, it does make it so that everything seems a little bit more real and genuine for some of the users. Where as in the past, you'd notice things like that it's a non-native user of your language, for example. One of the things that we've noted.
Great, thanks, Justin, for that. Definitely AI playing a very big role on creating the language. Last questions, I will take it here is, it's a very interesting question, is that there is a relation between user posting private information online and attacking, building the phishing message. It definitely, this is also one of the things that is to understand how they can come to you, right? So definitely the attacker, especially if we're talking about spear phishing, is that the attacker also trying to build a database or information about the victims. So do you see that there is a relations? Do you see that it's happening a lot? Any of you?
Yeah,
Justin.
yeah, definitely. I would say reconnaissance against users, like especially in the reconnaissance phase before the actual attack, there's a lot of data gathering that goes on against individuals. It's good to remember that a lot of the attackers that we're dealing with here are bona fide intelligence agencies with different levels of access to data. So a lot of times we treat these things like they exist in a vacuum. Like here's your laptop over here, and here's your Gmail account, here's your phone. For an attacker, all of those things are connected. Everything that's related to you is connected. That's on the internet. So if, let's say, I'm targeting your mobile device and I just get your contacts from your mobile device, there I now have a network of people that I can go and target those people. I can see what they're doing. I can see if they're weaker than you. All of a sudden, I'm building out an entire network of data around an individual. And then that's coupled with the back end data that the intelligence service is gathering or the law enforcement service is gathering, which is in many cases what these are. which could include passive data stolen from the internet because they have sensors located on different backlinks. So all of this is tied together into the surveillance state in these organizations. So any of the information that you have available publicly can be used to feed that and build profiles on you. Going back to AI earlier, this is now so much easier because there are tools that are built specifically to scrape this data, not only from social media, but also from the advertising that you're seeing on your screens when you go to visit websites. So deny the cookies. I would say use the ad blockers. This is important because essentially all of this advertising data, like if you look up real-time bidding data, if you look up like third-party data access for advertising data, all of this is also being used by intelligence agencies to gather information about you, even if it doesn't have PII in it, because they're able to determine who you are. A lot of ad agencies can tell who you are just based on the trackers that they're using. And besides putting you into ad categories, they're also selling that data on to organizations that are legitimate or aren't, or are a front for a government or aren't. So all of this information that you put online, frankly, puts you at risk. We have to live and we have to meet people and we have to talk about our day, right? Like there's a kind of a balance here, but I do think it's important to recognize that this information can be combined from different sources that you may not even be aware of to tell a lot about you as a person.
Thank you so much, Justin, for this. It's a very important. Privacy and attack is also, there is a line between both of them, definitely. Before closing this, I want to hear from Marilu first, then back to you all before. Marilu, you heard a lot of what's happening and a lot of people asking recommendations. And I know that Helpline is doing a lot of work. Analyst team that you are part of is doing a lot of work. What is your recommendation?
Yes, and thanks, Mohammed, for the question. So, continuous awareness through reports, newsletters, and webinars like this, not intending to promote our webinar that we will plan to host every 2 months starting this March. And yeah, being aware that platforms would not have a live support personnel that will directly contact you to update your account to secure it. Secondly, enabling two-factor authentication and using them correctly. Like 2FA codes should be triggered by activity only you have initiated in your account, whether that is by logging in and doing settings update. If you are a high-risk individual or organization, study how you can use more advanced 2FA like security keys or passkeys. And yeah, have a practice of not clicking to links that ask you to take action on your account or whatever messages it might be. So such messages or notifications should be validated directly in the application or account you are using. And being more keen on details, carefully inspecting links. For cases we have mentioned, attacker have relied on subdomains to impersonate platforms as well as URL shorteners. If you spot that a link have a lot of dashes, be wary of it, even it contains the domain name you are familiar with. And yeah, mention as well with other panels, enabling settings that increases security of your account and device. For example, on mobile phones, enable Apple lockdown mode for iOS devices. Then for Android, enable advanced protection mode. And lastly, quick step advice for emails and messages. So check the sender full details. Do not rely on username alone, as it's been proven to be easily spoofed. Have additional validation for links, even if it comes from person you have known. So any deviation from link name and format should raise a suspicion. So do not hesitate to double check with your contact via audio or video call, as some accounts could already be compromised and use an attack. And yeah, just lastly mentioning again, to not click on the links. So yeah.
Thank you, Marilu. That's a very important. Don't click on the links if you don't know who's the senders or if it's suspicious. We are coming to the end of this webinar. I want to give you 1 minute. What is last message? Rebecca, Justin, Mikola, what's your last message?
I
So
would say
for yeah,
I would say take
for
phishing seriously because I was going to quote you actually, Mikola. It's attacks 1, 2, and 3. So stay vigilant.
so again, when we don't have choice, so we rely on an end user, and then we conduct uh, awareness raising and I don't know, advice to end users. But in case when we have more organizational capacity, uh, in these countries, in such cases, the organization should be the main unit or of digital security, of security measures, of selecting security measures, implementing security measures. So then we don't work directly with their staff members. We work with the management, and management manages the risks, organizes phishing resistance, MFA, I don't know, device management, everything, organizes sharing fresh examples, educational activities every 6 months, for example, checks of accounts, centralized settings for devices, accounts from everything. So, as I said, well, the organizations become like more and more capable, and with these organizations, just not to keep, I don't know, treating them as low capacity group of individuals. So we have to educate everyone separately and don't treat them as a bad word, but let's say grown up organization. So this shift to organizational security happened in our field back in, 10 years ago with the safe tech framework did this shift. And my main message is to keep developing the organizations rather than individuals.
Thank you so much. Good advice. Justin, Rebecca, anything?
Yeah, I do have some advice. One, I'd guess some tool recommendations for checking links. I would definitely recommend a tool called URL Scan. It's urlscan.io, I believe. So don't click on other ones. You can just submit a link there. You might get a response that it's malicious or not, but at least you'll be able to see what's on the link too, in many cases, without actually having to go to it, which I think is really useful for people to use these online sandboxes to check links before they actually go. VirusTotal is also a great one that you can go and see what multiple vendors, cybersecurity vendors, have determined whether something's malicious or not. Maybe some others on the panel know some other ones. Those are the two that I tend to use to check links. And finally, I would say, uh, I think it's good to always double check. And if you have ways, if you're suspicious, get in contact, especially if it's coming from someone you know, there are a lot of ways to make it appear like it's coming from someone you know. Talk to them using a different method. So if they sent you a text, write them an email or call them, from a different device, look up their phone number. There's plenty of ways. Get in contact with them from another way and ensure that that message came from the person you think it came from and who you're talking to. I think it's safer to do that, especially in cases where it's a known contact. And finally, I think a lot of organizations are willing to help with cases like this. I'm happy to see that there's organizations, like Resident and Access Now and Citizen Lab, who are there to help you guys. And we will, if we can too. although it's a bit of a different ballgame. But yes, please, if you have malicious links, if you think that they might be suspicious, use tools like that, these online sandboxes that can check the URLs for you and see if there's anything suspicious. Just because it says it's not bad doesn't mean it's not bad. I will say that too. There's a lot of nuance here, but it's better than nothing.
And then I'll just say thank
Yeah.
you, Mohammed and Luis, for hosting this and for putting this all together. I know it's a lot of work, but it's very, very important for the community. So thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you. That's a good advice as we come to the end of today's webinar. I want to thank you, Justin, Rebecca, Mikola, Marilu. I mean, your information impressive. And I also want to thank everyone joined this discussion. I just want to mention again before closing the webinars that this session is a part of ongoing webinar series organized by Digital Security Helpline at Access Now. We will bring again new experts from the Access Now broader community, from the private sector to discuss this. I hope I find this today conversation was a very useful and informative. I learned a lot as someone who is in this field from a long time. I also want to invite everyone here to join the next one. We have interesting topics. You can either registered in our newsletter in Access Now or also following the event page. Thank you so much again. Thanks for your time and thanks for participation. And we are looking to see you in the next webinar. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all.